Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our very last Educate, Engage, and Employ webinar of 2025. I'm Robin Hebert, and I'll serve as your host today, along with Mitzi Holland, who is the director of the Kentucky Advising Academy. It's been a great webinar series this year, and Mitzi and I really appreciate your attendance and your participation each month as we have discussed how to support all Kentuckians through an education that leads to a prosperous and satisfying career. Today's webinar is going to focus on how to support students as they pay for their education, including the FAFSA application process and even how to tap into local and institutional scholarships and financial support. We are joined today by a panel of very knowledgeable and experienced guests, and we're really excited to welcome them all today. We have Wendy Kane, who is the Assistant Vice President for Finance at Murray State University. We have Dr. Chris Ledford, who is the Director of Data and Advanced Analytics here at CPE. We also have Mackenzie Scroggy, who is the Senior Outreach Counselor at KIA, and Robin Rickson is going to join us via video from as the Russell County CCRC. And of course, Mitzi will be with us as well. As always, we want to invite you all to drop your questions into the Q&A function, and we'll do our best to answer them during the live session. But if we run out of time, we always race the clock. We'll be sure to follow up with an email response to any questions that you might have. Now, we will welcome some guests who work on the programmatic side of college affordability, and we're going to begin with Wendy Kane. As I said, Wendy is the Assistant Vice President for Finance at Murray State University, and Wendy and I had the opportunity to work together on a Commonwealth Education Continuum project a few years ago, and it was related to college affordability. And I really came to respect and appreciate her wealth of knowledge and her experience. But mostly what I love about Wendy is her commitment to student success in her role. She does everything she can to support students to and through college and to help them be able to afford their college experience, and also to avoid having a lot of debt and loans at the end of that experience. So Wendy, welcome to the webinar today. I appreciate you making time for us. Let's start out by just having you share a little bit about your role there at Murray State.
Sure, thank you. I'm the Assistant Vice President of Finance here at the university, and I am over our student financial service areas, which is consist of our bursar area, financial aid, and our scholarships. So we are able to kind of help all students with anything related to money from the beginning of their start here at the university until the end.
Yeah. Wendy, I love how you always emphasize that, students are often concerned about getting to college, but you really talk a lot about helping them get through college with continuing support, from the different financial aid opportunities that you have. So, first of all, I know that you are an expert when it comes to community and institutional aid. So I wanted to start our conversation today and ask you to share some of your work in this area. And you know that I love your student success stories. I have some favorites. So please feel free to share some student success stories as you talk a little bit about community and institutional aid.
Sure. So, as I mentioned, I normally start talking with students as they're beginning to enter their college career path. So we always start talking about making sure you're trying to put together your full aid package. I always like to inform about loan options, but always like to leave those as a last option because my end goal is always to make sure that students are maximizing their gift aid all the way through college. Sometimes that's not just a one source item for students. So I try to give them all the options that I'm aware of and then send them with some tools to kind of search for some other options. But what we normally start with is when they're in high school, and this would repeat all the way through their college career, is making sure that they're trying to tap into all of that community aid or third-party scholarship gift aid. There are many different search engines that are available as well. There are a few that parents can even sign up for. So I always encourage when I'm talking to a parent, when the students are trying to go begin their college career, to make sure that the parent maybe goes through and signs up as well, because they may actually read some of those matches before the students, because sometimes it's overwhelming not knowing what you need to do. So getting signed up for those search engines is something I definitely recommend. A couple that we use or recommend often is scholarships.com or fastweb.com. And just reinforcing the fact that that's not just to do when you're in high school thinking about going to school. You want to make sure that you're looking at those throughout your college career, because as you progress in school, you are going to, your major may change, different qualifications. Maybe you're a junior or something like that that qualifies you for different scholarships than a first-time freshman. So I really stress that. It's not just a one-time application. It is a one-time application, but it's one thing you have to go out there and keep your matches updated and make sure that you're matching with the most best scholarships available. The other thing why students are in high school is I really encourage them to work with their guidance counselors. The guidance counselors from a local area normally know what's in the community. So we want to make sure that they apply to all of those scholarships that they could be qualified for. If they don't apply, we know they're not going to get it. So we want them to take the time to apply for those scholarships. And then also in the community. So some of the things that we talk to parents and students about is making sure, every student that comes to a university doesn't necessarily live in the same community and they're not graduating from the same high school. They all have different support systems as well. So making sure that you're reaching out to maybe banks that you are a customer with, or utility companies, or life insurance companies, employers, things that may not be like advertised very heavily, but you're a customer of. So reach out, ask if they have that support for the student going to school. And like I said, it's not necessarily a one-time thing when you're thinking about going to school, because you want to make sure that you're building a package for yourself every year to try to keep those loans minimalized if they have to come on the table. So that's several of the things that we talk about up front. The other thing I always advise, because I know one of the things I hear from students is it takes so much time to write the essays on every single one and to go back and to pull all the things together. And if students will just take a little bit of time and create maybe a scholarship resume where they have all of their awards and all of their information and kind of save that, and then just start with a general essay about their goals, their accomplishments, and then they can kind of use bits and pieces of that to complete their essays on those scholarships. And it does go a lot quicker for them. So that's one of the things I always advise as well. Another thing I always suggest is don't use your high school email when you're signing up for these scholarships. As you know, when you graduate from high school, you're going to lose access to that. So really, I would set up just kind of a special email, maybe a Gmail account that's just for your scholarship application, so you can choose when you want to go and apply for those or look at those scholarships to see where you're matched, so they're not getting overwhelmed in your basket. Because if you get on some of these search engines, you will get notifications often, which is a good thing. The other thing I always encourage students is once you choose a school, be sure and reach out to their financial aid, their scholarship office, and make an appointment. Go in and sit down with them, talk through a financial plan. It's scary when you first go to college and you see those big numbers, but working on piecemealing those scholarships together to create an aid package is what is going to help you be successful when you're in college. So your financial aid counselors, your scholarship counselors, those Employees are here to help, and we always want to help students. That's the most rewarding part of our job is to sit down and really come up with a plan so that it takes the burden off of the students when they actually are in classes. So I encourage them to do that. And then if you get to a point where maybe you have a little balance left over, or maybe it's a large balance and you just really feel like that's going to keep you from continuing on with your college career, definitely make an appointment. Reach out to someone. If you're not comfortable going to the financial aid office, reach out to your advisor, reach out to someone you're comfortable talking to, and they will reach out to the financial aid office on your behalf or coordinate for you all to work together. But that is what I find. Sometimes it's just people are scared to ask. They're scared to ask for help, not realizing that we can pull together and we try to work and find a match for them or match with resources that they may not be aware that they qualify for.
Wendy, I love how you really emphasize communication with families and with students, and especially, we've talked a lot in the past about students who are new to the college experience. They don't really know how to navigate all of these complicated systems, that they're trying to figure out. And so, I'm curious, do you have any like special ways that there at Murray State that you communicate or try to reach out or help students know about what's available?
Sure. We actually start communicating with students at the time of application. So when a student gets admitted to the university, we start communicating steps all the way through. We mail items to their home to the students as well as to the parents. We do a lot of social media target messaging for students, as well as we send emails. Now, the emails probably are not as well received because there's so many of those, but we do send emails to the students as well. We also have started text messaging, just quick reminders. Don't forget our scholarship application is closing. We really want you to apply. Here at the university, at Murray State University, we just have one scholarship application that students complete, and it matches them with all of our donor supported aid and institutional aid. So we really
Wow.
want to make sure that they get that one scholarship completed, so that we can get them matched with all of our committees at the beginning.
Yeah, what a great idea to have one form for the students to fill out that helps them apply for all of the different types of aid. Well, as we've talked little bit about communicating with students and helping them get to that last dollar that they need, I'd like for you to also share a little bit about your work with the CEC work group on affordability and some of the recommendations that work group came up with, and that are, I know your experience there at Murray State, but that are kind of applicable across the board, whether you're in high school or a different institution. Just talk a little bit about the work of that group.
Sure. Well, we came back to the common theme of communication. When we started talking about affordability, we had a group of people that were from all groups of Kentucky. We all were experts in different fields and saw things from many different perspectives. And what we came to realize is that Kentucky has a lot of resources for a lot of different students, not just the first time freshmen entering students, for the adult learner students. There's just a lot of resources. And each individual agency has their own messaging plan that they put out. So sometimes we don't really know what we don't know because we're all putting different messages out. We're saying the same thing, but sometimes it's not being heard by all the audience. So the main thing that we came across from that group after many hours of work was that a great overall communication plan for our state would be very beneficial. Basically, pulling all of the resources that we already provide, and making sure that we're communicating in the same message, the same messaging, consistently, the same wording. that were saying the same thing. So, I'd use this one example. I work with Kia a lot, and a couple years ago, it was the FAFSA. People were not completing the FAFSA, so the messaging across the state was complete your FAFSA. Everyone needs to complete your FAFSA. Great messaging, great messaging. And the parents and students heard complete your FAFSA. But what they walked away with, complete your FAFSA, you can go to school and it's covered. That wasn't what was presented, but that's kind of what was heard. So, just making sure that we're all, they've got to complete their FAFSA and then they'll qualify for aid. And then they do have to go in and accept it. And more than likely, it's not going to cover everything for institutions. So that's why you have to piecemeal your package together. You have to go after those private dollars and those grants that you can so that we can get a full package. But communication was the main thing that we walked away with, just making sure that our message was the same and consistent.
Yeah. It's interesting how, I know like you're concerned about Murray State students. You want to make sure that they get the right messages about Murray State, but there are messages that are kind of tailored for institutions, but then there are also messages like complete your FAFSA that
Yes.
are really for everybody, no matter
Yes.
no matter where you're going. And so I think that having this coordinated approach and partnering with institutions or agencies like Kia, is a great way to get to that. Let's see here, Wendy. We did have one question that came in. It said, "Could you repeat those scholarship websites that you mentioned?"
Sure, sure. Fastweb.com is one, and that particular search engine does have a parent portal. So the students can sign up, but the parents can also go in and set up a profile for themselves. You just have to make sure that you're adjusting it, if your student changes their majors, because it's going to match you with what you qualify. And scholarships.com is another one. And I'm sure there's many, many more. I wouldn't sign up probably for more than two. You're going to start getting matched with the same type of scholarships. And one thing I always remind students is don't pay to apply for a scholarship. Scholarships should be free. Agencies and organizations want to donate their money and give their money to support education. So if you are having to pay to complete an application, or if you're having to pay to apply for a scholarship, move on. It's my best advice.
All right. Wendy, I have one last question for you.
Uh-huh.
I know that you all have a foundation that helps support scholarships for students, and I wonder if you have any advice for people who are trying to establish scholarships, or even for students who are trying to secure scholarships from foundations. These are the kinds of things that don't show up on the FAFSA. They don't show up on state aid. And so these are things that especially first generation students might not know about. So what advice do you have about those types of opportunities?
Sure. And those are going to be different at every school. Like I mentioned before with us, we have one scholarship application that qualifies students for all of our foundation aid as well as our institutional aid. So we've tried to streamline and make that one process. So every school is going to be different. I would highly encourage students, if you're a senior and you're still trying to decide where you're going to go to school, make sure that you're researching all of the different websites to see how they do things to make sure you don't miss their priority scholarship deadlines. There's different foundations also. A lot of foundations may accept scholarships directly. You really just kind of have to go out there, but a lot of them also are going through these search engines. So the search engines would match you with a lot of those.
Okay. And so if a student or a parent, they could probably just reach out to the financial aid offices
Yes.
to ask about those kinds of things.
Yes.
I think
And
some students, if they fill out the FAFSA, or they've qualified, they think that's all there is. And so,
yes. Yes, and normally it would be on an institution's website. So I would
okay.
highly encourage you to look under a scholarship, financial aid, or a scholarship website. The scholarship website should show you how to apply for your scholarships for that institution that you're interested in.
I love your advice about updating throughout a college career. You know, my kind of paradigm about that is you get the financial aid when you're a freshman, and then you just try to keep it, throughout. And this idea that there might be additional dollars that can help support students as they go through their college journey is really interesting.
Yes, I can tell you specifically at the institution I work at, our donor dollars are restricted by the donor. So we have several dollars that are for freshmen, but we have several donor dollars and scholarships that are maybe for a junior nursing major, maybe for a senior pre-med major. So they're very specific. And the students that maybe didn't qualify for something as an incoming freshman, as long as they continue and they keep that information updated, then they would qualify for something later.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Wendy, thank you. I know you've got to run to another meeting, but I just want to say thank you again for being with us today. As always, I learn things when I have conversations with you, and we really appreciate you taking time to be with us today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. So at this time, I am happy to welcome Dr. Chris Ledford into the room. Dr. Ledford is the director of CPE's Data and Advanced Analytics team. And he knows a lot about trends in post-secondary affordability. You probably have seen Chris and me talking a lot about dual credit, and we feel a little weird talking about something else today. But Chris, we do know that college affordability has been a very hot topic in recent years, and many prospective students and even graduates have expressed their concern about the seemingly high cost of a college education, the burden of student loans, and even the return on investment. So I know that you all have looked into these questions with a very critical eye and careful analysis of real data so that you can answer some questions for us. So we're really excited for you to just tell us what you know about affordability and the value of a college education in Kentucky.
Well, thanks, Robin. Hope you're doing well and good to see you as always. I'm so glad you mentioned sort of public narratives that we're hearing around post-secondary affordability. I'm going to be sharing a lot of data today that I think, given those sort of prevailing narratives, that a lot of folks on the call will likely find surprising. But I'm really glad to have the opportunity to share some information about affordability in Kentucky. To empower this group here. There's a lot of positive things to say about the work that's going on around this state, and I hope folks will grab these data points, jot them down, and join the choir. We've got to sing about the good news that's going on statewide, to sort of reverse those narratives and help students get into college. As I get started here, Robin, I'm actually gonna to begin with a discussion about Kentucky's 60 by 30 goal, and sort of a focus on degrees and credentials, because that's ultimately why affordability matters, right? Students are not going to come and get credentials and degrees if they can't afford it. And those degrees and credentials, through the framework of our 60 by 30 goal, which states that we want to have 60% of working age Kentuckians with a degree or credential by 2030. That matters because degrees and credentials are the most reliable way to social and economic mobility, right? From our studies internally and externally, national studies, we know that bachelor's degree earners make about 1.2 to 1.5 million dollars more than their high school peers who didn't go to college over the course of lifetime. And what does that mean, though, for Kentucky? At the individual level, these are people who are going to go on to make more wages, live a healthier and more prosperous life. At the state level, that's going to develop a tax base and more consumer spending. Robin, I think it's so interesting to talk about funding and affordability around post-secondary education. And that ROI piece of this discussion, we just did a study with the University of Kentucky, and found that for every $1 that the state invests in a student in higher ed, they make $21 back. Every $1 nets our state $21 from our graduates. All right, so I'm gonna share some slides here real quick, if that's okay. Can you see that slide, Robin?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. All right. Well, again, to get started, I want to start us off with some context through the lens of degrees and credentials. And we got some great news, Robin, to share about what we're doing with degrees. We're producing way more degrees than we were 5 years ago, and that's due in large part to what we're doing around affordability and affordability measures that we've implemented recently. Some highlights real quick. Statewide credential production has been growing steadily since 2019, both at our 4-year and 2-year public institutions. It's also increased in our IQ or private colleges and universities. This past year, we saw increases in every degree and credential bucket in every sector across the state. How incredible is that? Bachelor's degrees in both 4-year sectors, graduate degrees and credentials in both sectors, and total degrees and credentials, including associates and certificates at KCTCS. And a lot of the things I'm going to talk about as we move along have a lot to do with that continued growth in dual credit participation. We're setting new high marks for retention and graduation rates every year. We're consistently lowering time to degree, which is huge for affordability. All of that stuff creates optimism about our ability as a state to sustain that progress. And here's a quick snapshot at that degree growth. This is just public institutions, so our 4-year and 2-year publics. But total public degree and credential awards have grown steadily over the past 5 academic years, not including that little dip there in the pandemic era, about 3.8% since last year, and nearly 13% over that 5-year period. Well, what's contributing to this? This is where affordability and that ROI discussion and ultimately degrees sort of all coalesce around each other. We're making huge gains in reducing student debt levels statewide. And folks, this is one of those points where we hear a lot of contrasting information in the media and from political elites. And I'm here to tell you the evidence simply just doesn't support that. Looking at all graduates, so those with and without loan debts in a given year, that chart on the left, over the past 5 years, the average debt load at graduation has gone down by 33%, folks. Not a typo, 33% reduction over 5 years. If you just look at graduates with loan debt only, so people who had $1 in debt or more, over that same 5-year period, that number's gone down almost $3,000, which comes out to about 10%. Remarkable progress in Kentucky at reducing student debt levels. Also, over that period, the total number of students in our public institutions graduating with any amount of debt has gone down 15%, Robin. Right now, only about 2 out of 5 of our public graduates have any debt whatsoever at the time they complete. So what's contributing to this? How is this happening? Well, the number one reason is that more aid's available to students who are seeking it. Although cost of attendance is growing, and you hear a lot about that in public news and from political elites, cost of attendance is only one part of the story. Average aid is also increasing, and that's important to keep in mind when you hear these narratives about, college is becoming too expensive. College is out of touch for most people. It's simply not the case. If you look at so on the left, we're looking at data from 1920 for our 4-year publics, on the right from 23-24. And yes, you see that cost of attendance, that middle red box, yeah, it has gone up. That's no surprise. But part of that narrative is also captured in those two boxes below, the two red boxes below. The average state CAP grant, which is sort of Kentucky's version of the Pell Grant, has increased right at $3,000 over that period. Also, the number of students who are receiving aid is increasing. If you look at that institutional aid down there at the bottom, that has also increased by about $1,300 over that period. And the further back you go, that increase gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So yes, Cost of attendance is going way up, but so is aid. So now, if you'll turn your focus to those top two boxes on both sides, average debt at graduation has actually gone down, and the average unmet need, or what students owe after all their scholarships and aid are exhausted, has been really flat. So cost of attendance, Robin, is just one part of the story, right? But that's the part that we hear all the time out in public media. Same thing with KCTCS. Yes, the cost of attendance has risen, but again, that's only one part of the story. That CAP grant has increased, as well as the proportion of students receiving it. Institutional aid, although KCTCS doesn't award a lot of institutional aid, that's also gone up, and the proportions of students receiving that aid is also going up. So what does that mean? You look at the top, debt loads at graduation are going way down, and unmet need levels are very flat. Again, cost of attendance is just one part of the story. What else is contributing to this? Robin, you're going to love this. Kentucky's dual credit scholarship program. High school students in Kentucky, as many of y'all probably know, can receive up to 12 tuition-free credit courses. That's a semester. That equates to thousands of dollars for students who take advantage of this in terms of tuition reduction. That will cover up to 4 gen ed courses and 8 CTE courses throughout the high school career. That's so important in this affordability story. And because of that and its impact on time to degree, Kentucky actually a few years ago set a first of its kind nationally dual credit attainment goal that we want 50% of Kentucky high school public graduates to have completed at least one dual credit with a qualifying grade of a C or better. And as you know, Robin, I love this data so much. We're getting it after it when it comes to that dual credit attainment goal. In 2016, just 7 years ago, only about 23% of our graduates had successfully completed a dual credit course. Right there in 2017, you see that big spike. That was the implementation of the Dual Credit Scholarship Trust Fund. That's policy in action. And we've been on a meteoric rise ever since then. As of 2023, which is the latest cohort of grads for which we have available data, we're up to 46.2%, just 3.8 percentage points from that 50% goal. And the early return suggests we're going to go up a pretty good bump again in 2024. What is that? Why is that dual credit so important? You're looking here at public university average time to degree by dual credit attempt status. So in that green line is the 4-year public sector average. And as you can see over time, we've gotten time to a bachelor's degree almost to right at 4 years, which is remarkable. But if you look at that orange line, which is students who matriculated to college with dual credit, any dual credit, they're actually getting to the finish line in under 4 years. And if you look at those who completed dual credit to those who matriculated without dual credit, that blue line at the top, there's a substantial difference there. 0.3 academic years, which is almost a full semester, Robin. Tremendous impact of dual credit. Same kind of narrative if you look at KCTCS matriculators. Again, the sector average, that green line there, is going down over time, and at 2.92, that's under the 3-year time to degree, 150% time for an associate's degree. And again, a big gap between that orange and blue line, which represent dual credit matriculators and no dual credit matriculators, about 0.7 academic years, almost a full academic year. I think, again, I like ROI narratives. Over time, the legislature has generously increased support of the dual credit scholarship, and average funds awarded to our public students in a given year has risen by nearly $220. If you convert that to totals over that period of time, again, 2017 being the inception of the Dual Credit Scholarship Trust, to 23-24 academic year, total funds awarded again to our public students that we can see in our data with valid data has risen almost $7 million. huge ROI. Here you're kind of looking at another way to cut those debt data. We're looking at the proportion of public post-secondary graduates, all 4-year and 2-year students, the proportion of debt at graduation. So this is any graduates with any debt by their dual credit attempt status. Again, one thing I want to point out that's great, all those lines are going down, which is fantastic. That green line in 23-24, again, I mentioned this earlier, only 40% of our students from our public institutions are graduating with any debt at all. But again, stark contrast between students who came in with dual credit or without dual credit, about a 14, in some years, about an 18 percentage point gap in the proportion of students who graduated with some debt. Similar story with our 4-year public completers. Average debt loads here at graduation, about a $7,000 gap in dual credit and non-dual credit matriculators. And even looking at the people who matriculated with dual credit compared to the sector average, about a $5,000 decrease in debt loads. KCTCS, similar story, about a $1,700 difference from dual credit matriculators to the sector average, and almost $3,200 between non-dual credit and dual credit matriculators. A lot of good stuff to talk about. Couple of things to sort of wrap us up. We're looking at some of these time to degree metrics, affordability metrics, but we've also got our eye to the future. Hopefully, folks here have heard about and are aware of Futurity. But I think this is really relevant and a perfect segue from the presentation before me. This great website that's been live for several months now is just full of rich Kentucky data. Students can go in and look at any academic program in Kentucky by any institution and get specifics about that program. But importantly, they can see real Kentucky wage data about what students who stayed in Kentucky, who are employed in Kentucky, are earning out in the workforce. And that's critical, Robin, as a family, who's sitting down with a student and maybe a guidance counselor to pick a program that's affordable and right for them. All this information at their fingertips in one place. And one thing I'll add that we're working on building out in Futurity is a one-stop shop for every scholarship opportunity at the institution and programmatic level, so that students can get as much money to complete their degree as possible. One thing, Robin, I know you've been involved in a lot and love to hear about and talk about is our Summer Bridge initiatives. We're working hard statewide to help students smooth those transitions between high school and college with Summer Bridge initiatives. And we're chasing more money to support more of those programs statewide as the state's coordinating agency. To wrap us up, I've shared a lot of good news, and I hope folks here will take that out and sing the gospel. But let's be clear why this is important. Challenges lie ahead. Kentucky colleges right now and in the foreseeable future are facing the largest inflationary costs in 2 decades. Just for some context, over the past 4 years, higher ed costs have grown at an average annual rate of 4% per year, nearly double the rate over the past decade and a half. Over this period, appropriations needed to grow 35% to keep up with inflation, but they only grew 19%, which has created a $121 million funding gap. All this is so important because Kentucky, like all the other states in the country, we have to have sustained investment in higher ed to prevent those inflationary costs from falling on students and their families. In other words, we've got to keep college affordable so that folks can get those valuable degrees and credentials. Again, ROI matters. What we're doing with those dollars looks pretty good. We're first in the nation for retention rate improvement. We are first in the nation for persistence rate improvement. We're second in the nation for 6-year completion rate improvements. And we're making remarkable progress toward that 60 by 30 goal. Just as of last year, we were 3.8 percentage points away. We've got to keep funding education to keep that progress alive for a healthy and vibrant Kentucky. Thank you so much. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Chris, we had one question about workforce Pell, and I'm not sure if that's a question for you, if it's more a question for Mackenzie when we get to her, but do you anticipate workforce Pell freeing up work-ready Kentucky scholarship funds given their similarities? I don't know if you have anything to comment about that.
No, not really. We're starting to sort of look at that from a policy perspective in our shop, but in terms of some of those specific funding and scholarship questions, better for Kia folks or
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. All right. Well, Chris, thank you so much. I love how you're a cheerleader for all things affordability and dual credit. I appreciate you working that in there, maybe as a personal favor to me, but that those early post-secondary opportunities, I think, do make a big difference. And I really appreciate you sharing those slides at the end to show how Kentucky is really telling a different story than a lot of other states are telling about post-secondary enrollment and retention. It's just amazing what has been happening, and lots of credit goes to the institutions who have been working hard on that. Let's get across the finish line in 4 years, and let's keep affordability, manageable and not have huge increases in that. So thank you so much for giving us the facts about college affordability. And all of this is being recorded, so you'll be able to go back and access the information that Chris shared today. So thank you so much, Chris. All right, I'm going
thank
to turn
you.
things over to Mitzi now, who's going to bring in a few more panelists for us today for our conversation. So, Mitzi.
Thank you, Robin, and thank you, Chris, for all that great information. We're going to switch gears just a little bit and hear from one of Kia's outreach counselors because we know there's a lot of great things going on, and she's going to talk to us about some of the ways that Kia is working to support those on the high school level as they're supporting students in their journey to post-secondary education. So Mackenzie Scroggie is with us, and Mackenzie, you can tell us a little bit about yourself if you want to, and how many years you've been working with Kia. I know you've done countless numbers of FAFSAs with students. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, like she said, my name is Mackenzie Scroggie. I serve 13 counties to the south. I currently, the only thing that separates me in the state of Tennessee is Dale Hollow Lake. So I serve 13 counties to the south, and I do a lot of FAFSA. Unfortunately, I'm known as the FAFSA lady, but that's okay because I'm helping kids get funds for college, and that's what pretty much means the most for me. But yeah, I have been with Kia for coming on 5 years now. Some days it feels like I started yesterday, and some days I feel like I've done enough FAFSA for like 30 years. So it just, kind of evens out.
FAFSA is your life. I get it.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to kind of lump a few things together because I know you can speak to FAFSA very well, but just give us a brief overview of why the FAFSA is important, what it determines, and maybe some key changes or updates for this year, if there are any.
So the FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. It determines grant eligibility. So it takes household income and it determines if students are eligible for the Pell Grant, but it also goes into determining CAP eligibility, which is the College Access Program, which is a state grant. And it doesn't determine KTG, which is the Kentucky Tuition Grant, which is also a state grant for private schools. But a student does have to show financial need in order to receive KTG, and the FAFSA plays a role in that as well. Some key changes, knock on wood, this year's FAFSA has gone pretty swimmingly. I was looking at some data. The last time that the FAFSA opened on October 1 was 2023. And there have been fewer reported glitches because everyone, when I say FAFSA glitch, everyone just can think of one right off the top of their head. There have been few or less reported FAFSA glitches. We also have less verification need because the what used to be the IRS transfer is now called their direct data exchange, and it's working so much better. So there's actually less of us putting in tax information by hand, which is such a lifesaver for anyone who does FAFSA. But there's less error, there's less room for error, so there's less need for verification. One of the biggest changes that I think everyone is rejoicing about is when a student invites a contributor. So when a student is inviting a parent, we no longer need their social security number or their date of birth. All we need is an email address. So I'm very grateful for that because sometimes tracking that down is just extremely challenging, or parents wanting to share information with students like that is also kind of a challenge. So having an email address that a parent can get a code to is really the way to go. Another big change. So last year was the change where they required you to report assets on small businesses, family farms. So last year was kind of the first year that we've had that has since changed. So that's not something that we really have to report anymore. If you have fewer than 100 workers, small business or on family farms, that's not something that has to be reported. Those are kind of the big changes. We all know about like SAI, how it was, like the EFC, now it's an SAI, now it's on an index. It also was reported that this is not this year. This is just since we've had like the launch of the new FAFSA, that like 30% more students across the state of Kentucky have been eligible for Pell. The only bummer, the only big kicker with that is the sibling discount is gone. This is not the first year that the sibling discount is gone, but the sibling discount still not back. So those are just a couple changes. Those are kind of the biggest changes. So yeah, that's pretty much, that's FAFSA changes in a nutshell.
Well, it sounds like there's definitely more positives than there
Yes.
are negatives with the FAFSA now. So that's great news. I know, that we're getting close to the end of the webinar, and I definitely want to give us time to talk about the Work Ready Scholarship because Dr. Ledford mentioned a lot about the work that Kentucky's doing to make college more affordable. And I want you to talk to us a little bit about the Work Ready Scholarship, Kia. You can talk about Kia's role in the Work Ready Scholarship, but what it covers, the eligible programs, et cetera. And how students truly can go to school for little or no cost in Kentucky, and even maybe reference how the Work Ready can be combined with Pell and other things.
Work Ready is probably one of my favorite things to talk about just because it serves so many students across Kentucky. And I think there's a bit of a misconception. When we think of scholarships, we think of just now graduating seniors. Work Ready is available for, any kind of student, non-traditional student. So if you are a parent and you would like to go back to school, if you're a grandparent and you would like to go back to school, if you're not a parent, but you feel like you're past the college going age, and you feel like you want to go back to school, like go. We have funds available for this. So Work Ready really just kind of serves everyone with either a high school diploma, high school, or GED. So the Work Ready Kentucky Scholarship is a last dollar scholarship. So it actually serves up to 100% of what you need after we take into consideration Pell, CAP, KEYS, if a student is still eligible to use their KEYS money. So it's that last dollar scholarship. It is limited to up to an associate's degree, which is 2 years or 4 semesters. It's 60 credit hours. To be eligible for the Work Ready Kentucky Scholarship, you must be a Kentucky resident. You have to be a permanent resident. You cannot just be visiting. Like I said, you have to have a high school diploma or GED. You cannot be in loan default. I will say there are some schools who will help you get out of loan default. and kind of back on track, not deferred. Deferred and default are completely different. Deferred is where payment is being deferred out. It's not going to be due right now. Default is kind of that key factor. You also have to be in an eligible program. Earlier, I sent Mitzi what we have right now. This is for the 25-26, so the current school year that we're in. We will get the 26-27 the eligible program list out. That's not out yet, just because we're still in this current cycle. But I sent that link to Mitzi earlier so she could send that out. You have to be enrolled in an eligible program. Those programs, it's the 5 most in-demand programs in the state of Kentucky. So that is going to be advanced manufacturing, business services. That's not true. It's now scientific services. So we have advanced manufacturing. You know what? This is not the right list that I have pulled up. I was double checking myself to make sure that I had the right one, and I don't. That's from last year's. So it's going to be healthcare. It's going to be science services, which is going to kind of go into transportation and logistics, along with a little kind of like businessy things. We have added education. That's going to be a little bit different because we have to look at just 2-year programs, and we know that education is 4 years. So there's going to be some different things that fall into that category now. And construction. So those are going to be like the 5 main programs that we are looking at for eligibility for the Work Ready Kentucky Scholarship. Everyone wants to know if we can stack Work Ready and Pell. You can, if it's needed. Now, I do kind of want to touch on that a little bit. If you are attending a KCTCS institution, usually full Pell will cover what you need. So the Work Ready isn't always necessary. Because if you're receiving full Pell, you're probably going to receive CAP as well. But if you're not receiving full Pell and what you have for CAP, or you're not eligible for KEYS or whatever that may be, you can use the Work Ready Scholarship. So it can kind of be stacked to cover what you need. Another thing that I think is sorry, I talk with my hands. Another thing that is extremely important to note is you have to be admitted into the program of study. So for instance, with healthcare, one of the things that's covered is going to be nursing. So you have to be accepted into the nursing program. It won't cover like the prerequisites. It's not going to cover what you need. You have to be accepted into the program. But Work Ready also, it is a last dollar scholarship, which means that it's also first come, first serve. So running out of Work Ready availability it's not lasted the full year. So usually it lasted until each year is different, but I think we have already closed Work Ready for the 25-26, or we're coming up on it, maybe end of December or mid-December. I can double check that for you all, but the application for the 26-27 school year opens on May 1. And that's for everyone. That's for graduating high school students. That's for parents, grandparents. If you decide, you know what, I've stepped away from education for a little bit. I didn't complete my associate's degree. I think I'm going to go back. That scholarship opens up on May 1. It also is a necessity that we complete the FAFSA. The FAFSA is one of the first steps that we need to be doing. So application for wherever you would like to study, FAFSA and Work Ready. Those are kind of going to be how we're going into getting those Work Ready funds for yourself. That was a lot of information, Mitzi. I'm so sorry.
No, it was a lot of information, but it's great information. And we do have a question here. Actually, I wanted to go back to the question that was asked previously too, about the Pell. You may have addressed that. I'll have to pull that question up. But we do have a question here that the person asked. She understands that there's only one pot of money, and Work Ready has taken most of that pot. Is there any chance in the future that KEYS money will increase?
So KEYS money and Work Ready kind of come from different pots. So the Work Ready, so dual credit in Work Ready is what people usually associate them with. I do not see an increase in keys coming just because that's a lottery fund. It's funded by the Kentucky Lottery. I don't see a keys increase happening. I cannot speak to that. I don't work for student aid, so someone at student aid could come out next week and be like, Mackenzie Scargy was completely wrong. But we haven't heard anything about keys increasing for high school students. Unfortunately, no. I do want to talk about that workforce Pell.
Yes, that was going to be my next. Do you anticipate the workforce Pell freeing up Work Ready Kentucky scholarship funds, given the similarities?
I think that it's a possibility, but Workforce Pell is very specific. It's for very, very, very short programs. And a lot of programs in the state of Kentucky are going to be maybe up to 2 years or less than 2 years. There's a possibility that that's going to free up some work ready money, the workforce Pell freeing up some work ready money, but the work ready is very short. It's a very short time. I think the maximum was like a 16-week program. So I think it's a possibility. I saw that question earlier and was trying to type back. I have actually already reached out to my bosses about that, to see if we have any more information on it. We haven't been able to run any projections yet, just because it's for the 26, 27, and we have to look at the final numbers for what Work Ready was and what types of programs it was. So I think there's a possibility that it could open up some Work Ready Kentucky scholarship, but I can't say with certainty. But I have already made a note to kind of follow up with Becky on that. So thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Perfect, Mackenzie. And if you do get information that you want to share out with the group, if you'll send it to me, I can send it out to
Absolutely.
everyone. And I will
already made a note.
I will say that we will share out slide decks from today and any resources, the links that Mackenzie shared with me. We'll get those to you all. We did have a video that we were going to share with you all, but we've had so much great information today that we couldn't fit it all in an hour. We've talked a lot about all the things that were needed. That are needed to be aware of, but we didn't really address ways or strategies that districts are using to really support students' boots on the ground. Robin Rickson is the college and career counselor at Russell County High School, and she does a fabulous job supporting students in scholarship searches and FAFSA completion efforts. And I sat down with Robin last week and picked her brain, and we talked about some of the strategies that she uses to support students. And that video, I saw Heather just drop that into the chat, and I will share out the link with that. It is a great video where she talks about the things that she does to make students and families aware of scholarship opportunities, both on the local and state level. So look for that link and be sure to sit down and watch that. With that being said, I'm going to turn it back over to Robin so she can wrap us up.
All right. Excuse me. Well, thank you so much, Mackenzie, for sharing with us today. I do have just a couple of things to take us home here. First of all, just thank you again for joining today, and special thanks to all of our guests who shared their knowledge and experience with you. In wrapping up, I wanted to give you a preview of what's to come in 2024. So you can see here on the on the slide that we have a couple of webinars coming in 2026 about mapping your future. First, for students in high school, and also for students who are already in post-secondary. We're going to be looking at CTE pathways and how to align high school and post-secondary programs to maximize credit in college and career opportunities. We're going to have a webinar that focuses on military service as a post-secondary path, so that we can think about the benefits, opportunities, and some guidance for K-12 and post-secondary educators who are working with students who are interested in military. We're also going to have a webinar that focuses on Kentucky's community and technical college system. We have an amazing community and technical college system in our state. It's an engine of in-demand workforce readiness. So we're going to have a webinar completely devoted to that system. And then finally, our last webinar of this school year will focus on collaboration and how we can sustain the K-12 post-secondary and workforce collaboration that is becoming so strong here in our state. I do want to also let you all know that we welcome your feedback on the webinar series, and we'd love it if you complete the evaluation. You can see the QR code there on the screen. This will give you also the opportunity to request ELA credit if that's something that you need. So if you'll grab that, I think Heather has that also, that she'll put the link that she can put in the chat so that you can access it that way. We wish you all a very happy holiday season, and we will see you in 2026.
Okay, I am with Robin Rickson, and Robin is the College and Career Counselor for Russell County High School. Robin, thank you for joining us today. Can you tell us just a little bit about yourself and your role as the College and Career Counselor for Russell County High School?
Yes, my name is Robin Rickson, College and Career Readiness Counselor this is my 13th year as the CCRC for Russell County High School. Before that, I came out of the business and marketing classroom. I was in the classroom for 12 years. I have worked at Russell County High School since 2004. And before that, I was at Russellville High School for 2.5 years.
Okay, so you've got quite a bit of experience in this role, and I know you do a lot of great things. Before we get into actually what you do to support your students, tell us a little bit about the demographics of Russell County High School.
Yes, so the demographics of our school, we're just shy of 900 students. We have a 14.5% Hispanic population. We are a Title I school. We're in a rural area, and we have a high rate of poverty. And 69.4% of our students are free reduced lunch, which qualifies our district for everyone in our school to get free breakfast and lunch.
Okay, so you're supporting a lot of students that maybe are first gen college, or definitely maybe from low income backgrounds, who maybe are not even thinking about how they can pay for college at this point in their career. And we know that one of the most common barriers mentioned by students and families when it comes to their ability to attend college is how are they going to pay for it. We also know that Kentucky's working very, very hard to help students go to college for little or no cost. And, you know, we've got some amazing data that shows that we're really trending forward in that effort. But we know there's still a lot to be done to when it comes to helping students and families understand about scholarships and financial aid opportunities. So tell me a little bit about how you work to ensure students and families in your district are aware of those opportunities.
So consistent communication is extremely important. I use a variety of communication methods to try to reach as many students and parents as possible. I use the Parent Square platform, which is the communication method that our district chose to communicate with students and parents. I use social media through our current events class, and they post information for me. I create monthly newsletters for seniors that highlights any events that I'm hosting, new scholarships, and any other informational item for seniors. I also have a scholarship one-stop shop in my office to make it convenient for students to easily access scholarships. I even a couple weeks ago took all senior English classes on a field trip to my office to show them where things can be found, where they can find resources, such as the KIA scholarship book, our local scholarships, our regional and state scholarships, as well as all the other resources that they have available in my office. So sometimes just making sure that the student is comfortable enough to know where those resources are located, even though that they know where my office is, just making them, you know, aware of the convenience of the location of the items.
I think that's great. And I noticed you said you utilized a lot of different communication methods. So announcing and, you know, just really, you know, newsletters and promoting. And I think that's key because the more that those students hear about it, the more likely they are to apply. So kudos to you for that. In addition to scholarships, I know you do a lot to promote FAFSA completion. So tell us a little bit about the strategies that you use to increase FAFSA completion and to encourage students to take that step and complete the FAFSA?
So I host many FAFSA workshops. So I host several in the fall semester, and then I host several in the spring semester. And those are highly advertised. I send out emails, flyers, reminders via the newsletter and Parent Square. I do personal reminders to students. I have announcements over the intercom. I went to their senior English classes and promoted the FAFSA and talked to all seniors about upcoming appointments. So just getting the word out there and letting them know that is a very important step of the application process and the college process in general. I do take appointments for my FAFSA workshops, which really helps me keep things organized on FAFSA workshop day. I allow up to 10 families per 45-minute time slot to sign up. And that ensures that I have enough help at my events where it's not like a big mad rush at the beginning or middle or end. And so I make sure I have plenty of help for my FAFSA workshops. And it also keeps my workshops less crowded to ensure the privacy of the families who are in attendance. So they feel like there's not another family just sitting right on top of them that could possibly be overhearing a conversation that they might be having about their financial situation or any possible barriers that the family might have.
That's always important for sure.
Yes. But and then also at our college application day, we really talk about the FAFSA and how, applying for college, that's one thing, but then the next step, and we just keep promoting that next step.
Okay. So you mentioned that you have multiple nights, and if you have 10 families, obviously that's not something that you could support on your own. So tell me a little bit about how you engage partners within your building, within your community, with higher ed, with other state organizations when it comes to supporting students in that FAFSA completion.
So I partner with our youth service center. I partner with our KIA, the KIA partner, and Mackenzie is our KIA representative. I also partner with a lot of local and regional colleges and universities. So like I said, my KIA representative is always in attendance, along with representatives from Somerset Community College, Campbellsville University, and Lindsey Wilson University. Since those are schools that can come to us easily, I always have a representative there from those schools. And we provide incentives for FAFSA completion, such as special drawings for students who have completed their FAFSA by a certain date. I'm constantly having our superintendent run the FAFSA completion report so we can look and see, and I'll think, oh no, that student, I know they've applied to school, or I know they have an interest. Let's get them in here and talk to them about their FAFSA. So with the senior class meeting, senior survey, where you're getting the information about what the student wants to do, individual senior meetings, all of those things are ways that we try to get our students to complete that FAFSA. And with all those people working together, it's a big help with all the partners working together.
Have you seen an increase in FAFSA completion over the years as you have implemented these initiatives and strategies?
Absolutely. Yes, I have, because the more people who are involved in the process, the less likely it is for a kid to slip by without doing the FAFSA.
And we know, preaching to the choir here, but we know that the FAFSA, even though it's a little bit intimidating sometimes, is the first step, even in some of those scholarships. Even if you think you don't qualify for a Pell Grant, you still need that FAFSA to qualify for a lot of the scholarships that universities give. So,
yes. And even like work study and things like that, that FAFSA completion is top priority for sure.
Absolutely. So we know that senior year is typically where the rubber meets the road when it comes to financial aid and scholarships. But we also know that planting the seed much earlier and helping students understand that they can go to college for little or no cost, and that there are scholarship opportunities and financial aid opportunities to help them. We want students to understand that college is an option for them. So tell us a little bit about what you do early on to plant that seed, so to speak.
Okay, so one huge event that I always host in the spring semester is called Operation Preparation. And that's an event for our 8th grade students to learn all about the career pathways that we offer at Russell County High School and at our vocational school, which is the Lake Cumberland Regional College and Workforce Center. We bring all the 8th grade students over in 2 groups, and we do a big morning rotation and an afternoon rotation at both the vocational school and in our building. And they get to see and learn about all of our pathways that we offer, all of our career pathways. And we tie all that into the opportunities at our community college, at Somerset Community College, and how they can take dual credit classes through our career pathways that could go towards their associate's degree at the community college. We also talk about the Work Ready Scholarship and how that's available for them to fund their post-secondary education. We give those teachers that rotation time to not only spotlight their career pathway, but they also spotlight their club that's associated with their pathway. And they have student demonstrations. Most of the rotations are student-led, where they pull in, senior members of their career pathway, and they're showing them how to weld, and they're showing them how to fix a car, or they're doing a robotics demonstration in the engineering pathway. So that's really, really exciting for those students to kind of plant that seed early on, where they can see something to look forward to when they do come to high school. And we've even been able to take them to Somerset Community College after they've seen our pathways, so then they can go see them at the college level and see how it's, how it would be easy to flow from the high school doing a career pathway straight into the post-secondary, and how it's so doable for them. So I feel like that it's a very successful thing that we do every spring. And our students are always amazed at what we have to offer.
Yeah, that is great. And I think, you can't start too early trying to show students the opportunities. And as you're showing them the opportunities and they're learning about, career and technical dual credits and, other dual credit opportunities, that in turn helps them know that they can get a head start on college for little or no cost. And so really, kind of makes it full circle. So I love that approach. And I'm sure that maybe if people wanted to see some of the resources and templates you use for planning these events, would you be willing to share those if somebody was interested?
Yes,
Okay,
I will send those
perfect.
to you, and then you can send them out.
Awesome. Great. Because I know it's always good when you can borrow from other districts who are doing great things. So
Absolutely.
I have one last question for you, Robin. What advice would you give to counselors or others serving in advising roles who might be looking to enhance their system for increasing access to scholarships and financial aid opportunities and/or FAFSA completion?
So I feel like personally, and just being consistent in your method of communication with students and their families. So, if you're going to use a platform like Parent Square, then use that the entire time. The way that I do it is I use Parent Square and email. So they're getting it. If they missed a message notification on their phone, then they could possibly see that same message or notification on their email. So being consistent, also being consistent when you're providing materials to students. Always keep things in a specific location so students aren't just guessing where they can find things. They know when they come to my office the exact location to go to have access to scholarships and financial aid resources. And being persistent in your efforts to get students to complete their FAFSA. We all know it can be difficult sometimes, but a lot of times it's a simple barrier that you can find a way to overcome and help that student. So it may be something as simple as the timing that you offer a workshop and the parent might not be able to make it at that time, or maybe the parent has another barrier but you can almost always find a way to work it out to where the student can complete the FAFSA. So just be consistent and persistent. Consistency and persistence is the key, or are keys to
being successful when it comes to that. Well, Robin, we appreciate you so much giving us your time today. Again, if you'll send me those resources and or templates, I'll be happy to share out with our participants. Thank you so much for all that you do to support students in their college and career journey, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Mitzi.